One of life's many ironies is the person in the fandom who throws around the word toxic and their own crazed logic, and the bullshit that's eating them from the inside out. Keep that in mind. The person who's selling themselves as a healthy state of mind is falling apart, mostly if nothing else out of habit. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. YouTube is stressful, but how stressful can life really be when you micromanage, when you throw everyone out of your kingdom for even the smallest of dissents? Or maybe that's the problem. Maybe sheltering yourself and treating every contradiction in thought and brushing away from every contradiction in opposing thought has left you frail and unprepared for any kind of social obstacle, and now you're having a breakdown. That's the moral of today's lesson, and why I do appreciate a no-nonsense, take-no-bullshit attitude. Part of life means literally everyone has to take, well, crap from someone else. Part of life is dealing with being uncomfortable and not just dealing with things with constant distractions and baubles. Sometimes you're gonna have to tell friends and fans, hey, this is the reason why. It's not to say that you can't have a drink, whether it be alcohol or occasionally sucking down a coffee, but I mean, it goes without saying, if you're having micro heart attacks, you're doing it wrong. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but I feel my advice is sound, and if it's not, my comment section is down below. But we're not quite done with Pete this week yet, not yet. This is from Pete's Tumblr, naturally. Doctor, so as you can see, the muscle in your heart has been considerably weakened, leading to low blood pressure and other assorted issues. Pete, isn't that a heart attack, doctor? Sort of, but not immediately threatening. Pete, so how did this happen, doctor? A lot of things can cause it. Drug abuse, oxygen deprivation, heart attacks themselves, stress. Pete, that last one, that's definitely what caused it. Anonymous, what the fuck happened? Pete, I went into the hospital earlier today with chest pains and dizziness, and was told I had what's called stress cardiopop. I'll put it on screen, which is a condition extremely similar to a heart attack. After a few hours and a few tests, they cleared me to go home, but I have to return for examinations every 3 days until it's resolved. It usually lasts a few weeks provided it isn't aggravated. I'm currently taking blood thinners to ensure I don't develop clots from low blood pressure. My word, that must have been a lot of caffeine, and keep in mind, I've actually had acid reflux disease for that sort of thing. It doesn't take too much to cut back. That must be a serious addiction. So, there's a video called Horse News Lies About KP for the 5th time. Aw man, do I gotta defend Horse News? Ahem. What are the odds that this is gonna bite me in the ass? Probably 2 to 1, but I've done worse.
Well, looks like Horse News is having itself another tantrum over KP. Those of you not in the know, KP is finding herself the center of another manufactureversy, this time for having the gall to ask about splitting a table at a convention. It seems KP, who works entirely without monetization, wanted to split a vendor booth without paying for it.
First things first. Whose fault is it that KP works without monetization? Her reasoning for not including monetization was the same reason that she chose not to give credit back in the day. It would require more work. See, if KP made money, then she'd have to keep track of it for taxes and how to split it up among varying members of her staff. Somehow, some way, her staff, and believe me class, we've talked about some of these brainchilds in the past. Jesus, when it comes to talking about KP, it's almost like being an adult is work. On top of all that, the vending booth was already split between Sam Lion and another party. Sam isn't a big fan of KP, he's worked with her. You won't find that anywhere in Lily Pete's video. Turns out the other party let KP in without consulting Sam. That's where there was an issue. Imagine, Jerry, if you were at a con where you split a table with, I don't know, say Wubcake, and then she let me in. Your head would fucking explode. Now, I doubt Wubcake would be so obtuse to offer someone you knowingly had heat with. And I would have had enough common sense to ask, hey, is the other party going to be okay with this? The first party behind the table, who I do remember, but I'm just going to be cool and not give up their name, you could literally say for no good reason, didn't ask Sam if they could include KP. Nor did KP ask Sam after she wiggled her way in until that there was a bit of a backlash. Had that happened, there might have not been any crap in the first place. Yes, I would entirely agree that Horse News' article would have been bullshit had any of these steps been taken. They were not. And we're just getting started.
Something of a shot-in-the-dark request that most people would respond to with a simple no. But it seems the ear-bleeding malcontents at Horse News can't even so much as get that basic concept right, and instead opted to spin a yarn about her harassing and intimidating people at a convention. Even reading Horse News' pearl-clutching whimpering, KP comes off as being annoying at best, which is hardly a crime. They didn't even get the not paying thing right, because KP never said anything about not paying for the table and just asked if anybody wanted to split a table.
You know what's funny? Lily did such a shitty job here. If Pete would have done the bare minimal of research, Pete could have gone and taken a shot at Josh. You know, Pete's #1 pastime. The one defining characteristic that Pete lets themselves be defined by. So the one person who KP used her position in the community to be thrown out is known as J Moore. Right or wrong, KP pulled some strings at BabsCon and had J Moore removed from the convention. I've covered this before, this is old news. I've talked to Ewall and Wolf from KP's staff that confirmed this. But the cheap shot, if I were Lily, would have been, oh look, the person that KP claims is stalking her works for Josh. Shame I have to do everything for you. You might ask why this isn't brought up, and the answer is simple, it has a name, Vita. See, Vita is now besties with Lily Pete. And the thing is, J Moore happens to be in Vita's chat. Now, I'm not suggesting that J Moore stalked KP, I wouldn't know. It seems kind of negligent, Pete, that you decided not to bring this up, or at the very least idiotic. Don't mind me, Jerry. You're on a roll.
It was Horse News that shoved in the not paying guff, presumably as part of them still being salty about the fact that KP's staff are, by and large, not bothered by working as volunteers. And then a whole bunch of people just ran with it. Horse News spent most of their own article proceeding to speculate on the mental state of one of KP's acquaintances, who they claim is her bodyguard, and spending a lot of the time painting them as a fedora-tipping white knight, which is the big red flag that they're bullshitting as usual.
Actually, Jerry, Jack Nolan straight up said he was KP's bodyguard.
Ever after? Nope. I met Claire and KP. We hit it off, and Kim said, "Would you be my bodyguard at BabsCon?" Whoa, you got threats on you, girl? Not really, but ever since that pay scandal, I've been feeling like people are trying to wreck me and I want someone to watch over me. Well, me being a certified officer and gentleman, of course I had to live up to that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Kim said, "Would you be my bodyguard at BabsCon?"
One more time.
Kim said, "Would you be my bodyguard at BabsCon?"
I mean, I could cite a bunch of other sources, but I didn't know when I would get a chance to talk about old Jackie Boy again.
Shitting as usual. So let's recap. KP asks if someone wants to split a table, and Horse News proceeded to have a histrionic tantrum about it and felt the need to alert the people as such a grave injustice and exploitation of creators. This is the common theme of most histrionic tantrums about KP, people treating her staff like idiots who can't make their own decisions. When confronted with the fact that the decisions of her staff don't reflect the perception of her that Horse News has so meticulously tried to create, the response is to just accuse them of Stockholm Syndrome. Doing anything else would require them to come to grips with the fact that they're flailing about nothing at the end of the day. In reality, maybe 6 or 7 people have quit working for KP on bad terms, and even the histrionic claims about her don't account for much when taken at face value.
Actually, considering the guy who wrote the article is Corpulent Brony, a wailing fit. I've had my issues with Corp in the past, but last I heard, I think either from him or Shelly D, Corp tried to say hi to KP in person, and she said fuck off. At conventions, I've not always been happy to see Corpulent, but on a drama scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the high and 1 being the low, I generally would put him at a 2. He's been far from screechy, shrill, and I'm not suggesting that he'd be fun to hang out with, but I've yet to really see a massive problem with the man. Conversely, Jerry's besties Vita, when I had an issue with Corpulent Brony, I made a video called "Sheldon Thinks It's Okay to Say Rape and Chase Girls Around Skype." One day, after I made that video, like an adult, Corpulent Brony came up to me, we had a calm discussion, and I took the video down. Vita, ever the petulant child, hosted it on his channel, and changed the title. Ever the Tumblrina, even back then he called it "The UFC Condones Rape Culture." On top of all that, Puzzle Brony and Toon Critic applauded the tactic at the time. So if you need an example of anyone being unreasonable, I'd point at Team Jerry.
Core of people's complaints about KP. One, that she doesn't pay her staff. As I've said time and time again, if her staff is content to work for her with few issues and few people quitting because of this, then you have no business getting offended on their behalf. A similar problem is seen with Dr. Wolf, where the people who draw for a moment with Dr. Wolf aren't paid for their time, but they're told this up front and they accepted that deal.
Let's talk about this one for a moment. You know the same Dr. Wolf who hosted all those D&D Brony campaigns with Toon Critic? The one that you've bitched about, even though you said Josh agreed to take them down? Dr. Wolf fought tooth and nail to keep them up, because you had to find a way to piss and whine about those videos and blame Josh, and not Wolf. Because once upon a time ago, you let Dr. Wolf play the role of your surrogate father. Which, by the way, if you have a roleplay family, I think this speaks volumes on why that's such a terrible fucking idea.
This is an internal issue that is up to the people working for KP to deal with, and if they decide it isn't an issue, then it's not an issue.
Sam Outline came to me about the time this went down, about the table. And he worked for KP. I guess it's an issue.
2, that she's egotistical. Grow the fuck up, maybe? This is ultimately the core of people's issue with KP. They think she's egotistical and full of herself, and that strikes a very sensitive nerve for a lot of vocal, angry bronies. But personally, I've never accepted that criticism as a valid one. Unless someone is so narcissistic to the point of complete detachment from reality, then any complaint about it won't hold any water. And even in that case, a lot of people of Horse News and most of the brony community has no business throwing stones in that regard. Heaven forbid somebody who's under a lot of stress not retain their manners 100% of the time. Heaven forbid the brony fandom's insatiable ego not be stroked for 5 minutes. Heaven forbid that the worst offenders in the fandom not be treated like a special little flower for once in their idyllic lives.
So a while ago, allegedly, some kid came up to KP, annoyed the crap out of her, allegedly, and she told him to fuck off. Now, there's a bit more to the story than that, but truth is, I don't entirely disagree with this. Yes, KP can be pissed off. Again, when I get to my BronyCon video, I'll be giving you guys some tips to keep from being that fan. Not just for BC, but for any convention. That will make your experience and the experiences of the people that you're fans of far more enjoyable. That said, the amount of drama I've had with Horse News at conventions hasn't risen any higher than, say, a 3 out of 10. Basically, the worst thing that's ever happened is Rurifag tried to kiss Kichi's hand. I stopped him, and then he stopped. It was a non-issue. By the way, to anyone going to BC, don't kiss anyone's hands. It's 2018. People don't do crap like that anymore.
KP's supposed ego never bothered me, partly because I'm not a child with her head up her own ass, but also because KP doesn't actually have an ego in the first place. The brony community has long been a place of socially maladjusted, sensitive, mostly conservative adult children who don't react well to someone so much as looking at them funny. Reading through the pearl-clutching whimpering of these sad sacks of shit, a lot of them are sobbing openly about the fact that KP might have been rude to them a few times. That's the ultimate kneecap to most of Horse News' bullshit. Even if what they said about KP was true, it would still only warrant telling Horse News to get over themselves and stop crying over nothing.
Seriously, Jerry, you yourself have said you've never been to a con. I could be wrong, but you've never talked to KP. I find it highly dubious that she would talk to you. Which, by the way, Jerry, I myself and Corpulent Brony, you know the guy who wrote the article on KP, kinda did.
Negative attention, it's still attention, and after all, we're all just attention whores, aren't we? So,
has KP's ego been too much for me in person? Of course not. I'm not an animator, an editor, or a writer. As such, I haven't worked for her. Also, as for pissing off vendors, I've been to BronyCon since 2015. I've managed to keep from pissing off any of them. Hell, when I had an issue with Beefish, which I assume is long gone, feel free to correct me down below if I'm wrong, I just simply avoided her. This year I might stop by, give a wave, brief hi, which is basically what I'm hoping to do with Webcake, fingers crossed. Hell, for all of Toon Critic's laundry list of fuck-ups, and keep in mind, I could be entirely wrong, I don't recall him getting any heat with the vendors, but then again, I don't know. I don't think they let kids be vendors.
Nothing. And when it comes to someone as consistently lied about and stalked as KP, it doesn't take much for these insufferable brats to go right up to 11 the next time she so much as scratches her nose. The contributors for Horse News have clearly never gotten over the fact that KP is still extremely popular among people who don't want to pretend like this fandom is God's gift to mankind and just want to watch some fun videos, and have opted to take the FNGR approach of throwing a years-long temper tantrum over it.
So Jerry, according to you, I taught Horse News how to be a dick? I mean, I don't feel like I have to say this, but Horse News has been around since before I knew what a brony was. Also, who stalked KP? How about a when, a where, or a why? You know, fundamental basics when making assertions like that.
Unsurprising from someone who thinks this is the kind of name you should be proud of. These people can't just say no when KP makes an open request. No, they have to be needlessly fucking dramatic about it as they work themselves up into a frothy mob. It was Horse News that started the last pile of absolute bullshit regarding KP, and Horse News has never fucking stopped since.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Ashley H as well as Anna Chloe M's video on KP was well out before the Horse News article. I would like to invite Corpulent Brony into my comments section, or hell, even a stream, which sadly will have to be on Fan Frenzy, if he'd like, to give his side of the story. But non-stopped? Since when? Well, since 2016 there's been 5 to 6 articles, one of which being why an analyst thought KP was worse than Discord. That's called a meme, Jerry. In the period of 30 months, 3 to 4 potentially serious articles came out. That's on average about 1 a year. Let's talk about that.
And before you ask, yes, Horse News does have articles consisting of them whining about the fact that other people are upset about things they don't think are worth dealing with, because of fucking course they do. Like any bog standard conservative, they whine about other people being too thin-skinned, and yet all KP has to do is look at them funny to send them into a pile of tears. Horse News is a strong contender for the single most pathetic fucking entity in the community, and I find it laughable that some of the comments think that Equestria Daily needs to publicly denounce KP and her staff, something that Sathisto responded to with what is a long-form way of saying lol grow the fuck up. At this point, KP has been so consistently lied about that no story told about her can be in any way trusted, especially if it sources back to these fucking clowns. So once again, the least offensive person in the analysis community is being pilloried for literally fucking nothing. And before we go, take a wild guess what KP's friends and colleagues have been doing in her defense. Of course it was jack shit. Good guess.
So when the Toon Critic fiasco broke out, did KP make any kind of video on the topic to either assist the community or anyone else affected? She did jack shit. So why in the fuck would the community need to drop everything they're doing to help KP when she fucked up? And here's another idea. Generally speaking, Horse News didn't bring people down. The tree has typically come down by the time that the Horse News story comes down. KP Gate would have happened with or without Horse News. Everfree Network would have gone tits up with or without Horse News. I've asked members of Horse News about as much about this. Hell, Horse News might have been late with their coverage on Performance Major, but I'm pretty sure they beat you to the table, Jerry. And I should have known because I've talked to Corpulent Brony to give him what he needed, and he was very professional about it. You know, the guy who did this article? Again, this might come back to bite me in the ass. But what can you do? Also, I'm leaving you with a parting gift. KP's bodyguard left some parting words for you.
Has his own internet stalker. A transgendered person acting out because she's madly enamored of that Marine uniform.
Well, that's until KP's staff insisted that he take down the videos. But don't worry, I saved it just for you. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye.